When it comes to fighting games, Street Fighter and Tekken are two iconic names that have well and truly cemented their place in the genre. And now we have Street Fighter Cross Tekken, a game that brings the characters of both series together to duke it out in an effort to impress both Street Fighter and Tekken fans alike by bringing them the best of both worlds. Does Street Fighter Cross Tekken pack enough punch to make it a prime contender? Or is this one fight worth walking away from? So how did these two giants of the fighting genre come to cross paths anyway? Well, as it turns out, a mysterious object from space believed to contain incredible power plummets through the galaxy and crash lands in Antarctica. And characters from both the Street Fighter and Tekken universe can't help but be intrigued. Their mutual interest in this phenomenon causes them to inevitably cross paths, and thus, well...
Street Fighter Cross Tekken!
There isn't really an overarching plot in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but rather several character-specific subplots that all revolve around a particular character's involvement with what is soon known as Pandora. The character-specific subplots are conveyed through brief cinematic cutscenes as well as pre- and post-battle text dialogue, and for the most part they are rather intriguing, at least to the extent that you'll be keen to see how things pan out. But of course, as in most fighting games, the focal point here isn't the story, but rather the gameplay. Despite what the title suggests, Street Fighter Cross Tekken leans a lot more toward the Street Fighter playstyle than it does towards Tekken. And therefore, as more of a Tekken fan, I found that the combat initially felt a bit stiff and the included Tekken fighters played and felt like their Street Fighter rivals, which left me feeling a little bit out of my comfort zone. However, I soon allowed myself to get the hang of things and actively made an effort to learn and master the fighting techniques of various characters, and upon doing so, I literally went from almost hating the combat to finding it to be diverse, fluent, and above all, a ton of fun. Most Tekken characters have made the transition to the 2D fighting ring rather well, and many of their character-defining attacks have been implemented in some way or another, which, as a Tekken fan, made me very happy to see. As in many other fighting games, there are several different modes for players to take part in, and as you'd expect, these don't stray too far from your run-of-the-mill fighting game modes. Arcade mode is of course present and is your standard affair, placing players against numerous AI opponents before reaching an end boss when once defeated reveals the aforementioned character endings. Other modes are also present for players wishing to take their single player experience further, amongst which lies modes such as Training and Challenge mode. The latter expanding into 3 different challenges, including Trial, a mode that tests your ability to perform special attacks and combos, Mission, a mode which challenges you to defeat tough AI opponents under special conditions, and last but by no means least, Tutorial mode, which is an invaluable tool for newcomers as it teaches you the ins and outs of the combat. Although I don't understand why it couldn't have been incorporated into the aforementioned training menu rather than be buried in an irrelevant submenu. On the Xbox 360 version, Street Fighter Cross Tekken contains a roster of 38 characters, each with their own fighting styles consisting of basic punch and kick combinations and unique special attacks. As players take part in combat, they fill a blue meter at the bottom corner of the screen. This meter is known as the cross gauge, and as it fills up, it allows for the execution of some seriously impressive special attacks and combos, involving either one or both of your fighters simultaneously. These special attacks are welcomingly simple to pull off, meaning that even beginners can feel like champions when they connect with one of these bad boys. Probably the biggest element taken from the Tekken franchise is the emphasis on teamwork and therefore tagging between your fighters regularly in battle. Tagging between fighters is not only encouraged in combat, but to an extent even enforced, with fighters partially regaining lost health when not in battle, as well as rounds or fights concluding when one fighter is KO'd despite the amount of health remaining on his or her teammate. Thankfully, tagging between fighters can be done at any time, whether it be when standing still or done seamlessly in the middle of a fierce flurry of attacks, which has the potential to make for some very impressive combos. Simply put, tagging between fighters in Street Fighter Cross Tekken can be used both defensively and offensively in combat, and the player that embraces this and uses the tag system to their advantage will often come out the winner.
Need backup! Leave this
To add a new layer of depth to the combat system, Street Fighter Cross Tekken also includes what is referred to as a gem system. Once activated, these gems grant players minor advantages in combat either passively or directly. For instance, players may receive a temporary boost in attack speed, damage output or defense, or they may be given a more active edge in combat, such as the ability to automatically block attacks or perform special moves easier. Players can strategically choose and customize the gems they use in combat to better accompany their playstyle and skill level, not only making the combat more interesting, but also adding a degree of personalization to the game. As well as the gem system, perhaps a more minor inclusion as far as the customization goes is the ability to customize a chosen character's appearance. This may have been a good idea in theory, but in practice it's far from it. With customization options that are primarily limited to changing clothing and hair colour and an end result that bears no real impact on combat whatsoever, the customization comes off feeling like a forgettable feature. As well as playing solo, players can also utilise the Versus mode, which allows up to 4 players to team up into pairs and duke it out locally, which, needless to say, is a lot of fun. And of course, players can also take the fight to other human-controlled opponents online. This feature is enjoyable in the sense that it allows you to test your fighting skills against equally skilled or superior opponents, but it ultimately has what I believe to be mixed appeal. What I mean by this is that the online community is largely populated by highly skilled players, and therefore hardcore Street Fighter fans will be right in their element, whereas lesser skilled, more casual players will likely feel a little bit out of their depth and after several painful losses, may be happier to play locally against friends. Another interesting online feature is the fight request option, which allows players to be challenged to online bouts against other players at any stage throughout the arcade mode. This mode not only keeps players diligent and on their toes, but also really emphasises the social appeal behind a fighting game. Thankfully though, this feature can be toggled on and off, so that players that wish to play solo with no interruptions can certainly do so. Throughout my time with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, the two most notable issues that I came across were some noticeably persistent lag in a few of my online matches, which would always affect the result, and probably the most frustrating issue I encountered was the occasional unresponsive controls, which prevented me from pulling off a special move or attack when I desired to do so. Words cannot describe how infuriating it was to try desperately to pull off a special move, only to have your on-screen fighter behave as though you pressed an entirely different button.
Let's end this now! Nice knowing ya!
Street Fighter Cross Tekken's cel-shaded visuals are fantastic, presenting excellently detailed character models, a variety of fighting arenas brimming with colour and atmosphere, silky smooth animation that perfectly conveys each battle, and a frame rate that remains consistent throughout the experience. Additionally, the soundtrack, which was a good mix of rock and techno tracks, accompanied the adrenaline-pumping action excellently, and the only issue I could spot was that when playing online, the audio had a tendency to drop in and out at random, a small issue that will hopefully be promptly rectified through simple patching. Overall, ladies and gentlemen, yes, Street Fighter Cross Tekken is a great fighting game, but perhaps not for everyone. Hardcore Street Fighter fans should have no hesitation when it comes to picking this one up, but the initial feeling of alienation for Tekken fans may prevent them from trying this game out. So for all of you Tekken fans out there that are still undecided, here's my advice. At least give it a rental. Give this game the chance to impress you, because at the end of the day, there is a lot to like in Street Fighter Cross Tekken.